You know, usually we do edgy games on the show, you know, games with swords and stuff, but I ask you, what is edgier than the existential nightmare of life? Pray tell. Pikmin's a simple game with a simple premise. What if the human player in the comfort of their home was forced to face the existential nightmare of the food chain happening in their own backyard? It's one of those games people tend to forget because they didn't hand every plant ant here a fully automatic rifle or, you know, whatever little kids are into. The franchise has been a lot of things in its 3 major games, seemingly shifting direction with each iteration, but the lesson it teaches is the same every time, that life is infinitely precious and fundamentally cheap, that the world is wondrous and pernicious all the same, and stupid people should die. I remember buying Pikmin at 9 or 10 and playing about halfway through, quitting, and shelving it permanently. Now you have to understand that young KBash was eating puzzle pieces. Pikmin has more game, more engagement on offer than most games I've seen this generation, and I can't believe I'm saying that. Having played all 3 now, I'm torn on which is the best, but this game left an incredible impression on me. It seemed like a joke, and I think he overshot his estimation, but I see where Shigeru Miyamoto was coming from when he called it the next Mario. Let's break it down. Pikmin is, at its core, a game where a small guy controls up to 100 small guys to accomplish tasks, mostly collecting pieces of a ship that broke up in the atmosphere, killing local wildlife, and carrying them back to harvest their flesh. Other goals include breaking walls and bridge building. I don't know. When you look at it on paper, it's not much. Controls are simple too. Pikmin follow you around, you chuck them with A, call them with B, dismiss them with X, and you can make them move around with the C-stick. It's really easy to understand. It feels good on any controller. Don't listen to the people who can only play with the Wiimote. The GameCube controller's fine. The game takes place over 30 days, and each day lasts 13 in-game minutes. You have a maximum of 6.5 hours in-game time to beat this game. You can lose this game. You can die in Pikmin. This shit scared me away, turned off most of my friends who bought the game, but I would argue the time limit is essential to Pikmin at its core. Every single day you'll land, withdraw your Pikmin, and then the day is on you. You do what you can as fast as you can. There's a real sense of pride and accomplishment the first time you find 2 ship parts in a day. And when you get 3 in one, I don't think I can even explain it, but let me try. You ever paid off your college loans, bought a new car, landed the big job, and put a down payment on a house all in one day? No? Buy Pikmin now, get a taste of what you can never have. Life is short, time is fleeting, and every second counts. Pikmin engages players from start to finish with a rotating sun JPEG. This game rewards optimizing every second, and it pays off, believe me. But you don't even have to play it that way. Turns out Kid Me was just a little coward, afraid to take risks. I had 1/3 of the time left over, and I had slow days and quick ones. Even if you lose, it's no big deal. The game is easily and rewardingly replayable, and you'll have all that knowledge from before backing you up. The enemies are the second soul of Pikmin, what you'll be interacting with, killing, feeding off of. It's a fairly small selection, but each new creature matters. And besides, combat isn't Pikmin's strong suit. It's sloppy and weird. It often feels more like a calculated risk than engaging in an epic duel to the death. And maybe it should be. Even if you lose some, the harvest is usually enough to recoup your dead friends. Jesus. The designs are simplistic and brilliant for the most part. The planet that Pikmin takes place on is strongly implied to be a post-apocalyptic Earth, so they needed it to feel alien yet strangely familiar, and I think they succeeded on that front without question. In fact, the biggest enemy in this game is the AI. I think playing the later games spoiled me, but the Pikmin are so stupid. You're just trying to maximize your time when suddenly... Hey, no, guys, quit it. Stop. Stop pulling the grass. I'm not paying you to mow lawns. God damn it! I'm letting you get eaten. And there he is, everyone. Well, the bastard wouldn't listen. Are you happy with this? Yeah, feed the chain of life, you scum! Oh yeah, here's where the YouTuber inputs funny joke about kill Pikmin. But guys, am I missing something? It's polygons, bro! But it's okay, see, them being stupid is just a really good incentive to pull up the grass and suck up that honey. Pikmin mature, making them faster, so less likely to get stuck on a wall, and honey takes them from leaf to flower instantly. It's a neat trade-off, long-term reward for short-term inconvenience. You know, the game is fairly easy overall. There aren't too many ship parts that are difficult to collect. Some are hiding way higher than expected, some are hiding in monsters, but either way, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out. Some of them are entirely extra anyway. You really only need to think think about how to tackle, I don't know, 5 to 10 situations in the game, and I could see it being a fair challenge for younger players. It's worth mentioning that Pikmin takes place in 3 major levels and 2 minor ones. The 3 major ones house almost all the parts, are uniquely themed and sprawling, yet feel cozy and interconnected, like some other fucking game. The first level doesn't matter, and it's stupid how small it is. The last level, though, so Pikmin has had kinda bosses, but the final boss is unmistakable. He gets his own level, which is literally just a puzzle section that's surprisingly annoying to get through, and then, what the fuck? I mean, I said you could die. He's tough, but he's not that tough. The final boss relies on micromanaging your Pikmin well, which is at its highest difficulty in this installment, which is either a fair challenge or a big Miyamoto fuck you at the end of a good game. Pikmin's great. It's fast, frenetic, chaotic, triumphant, heartbreaking, engaging, so many adjectives. The worst thing about this experience, which I loved, enjoyed, whatever, is that it probably isn't worth your money. I don't think you can justify making someone pay $60 for this game, right? It's not a big consumer experience. Yeah, it has some content. Yeah, it's really fun for 6.5 hours, but the game feels like a tech demo, a beta version of a much bigger game. Maybe a game so big, nobody should ever play it. I came hot off Pikmin 1 wanting more Pikmin 1. This was a mistake. Pikmin 2 is probably the best Pikmin game if you have infinite time, enjoy dungeon crawling, and don't like pretty overworld design, are a completionist, and really like weird, indirect, awkwardly controlled combat systems. Alright, hear me out. I got Pikmin 2 as a kid, and I really liked it back then. I was kind of expecting to love it just as much now, but I realized in approximately 10 minutes that this isn't even close to what Pikmin 1 was going for, and succeeding at too. Shigeru Miyamoto took more of a backseat on the design team for Pikmin 2, and it shows. A lot of the fundamental gameplay is altered, and in bizarre ways. Firstly, you have 2 characters now that you can swap between. It's true that in Pikmin 1 you could be caught waiting around for a wall to fall down or for a ship part to reach your base. Waiting sucks. So now we have expanded micromanagement options. Cool. The first immediate issue, however, is that there isn't all that much to do simultaneously. If anything, one captain will be dealing with a major objective while another's, I don't know, gathering berries. It's not like you've got a bunch of puzzles that require 2 characters, right? Just a couple. It's still a worthwhile addition, but again, most of your time is spent not on the overworld, where the objectives actually are. Second, levels are bigger, wider, it takes more time to traverse and get anywhere worthwhile. Maybe I'm crazy, but I swear the amount of extra space is palpable. It actually necessitates that second captain, because grabbing a thing, sending it home, and then running all the way back would be fucking infuriating with just one dude. But then, maybe the stage size is necessitated by the new goal of the game, which is to collect human garbage and ship it back to your planet to pay off your company's debt, which was entirely accrued by Satan himself here, Louis. And this is a callback to a couple minutes ago when I mentioned that Pikmin 1 was set on Earth, Vlasic, Duracell, fucking marbles. Some of this stuff is crazy. The world is full of all this junk left behind by a presumably eradicated human species. When you're 12 or whatever, this is cool. When you're old, it's like, yeah, okay, drag the jar lid, what is that, like 12 of these? Back to the base, what's that, a glove? Okay, so right, they leave treasures inside monsters and also buried on the world map. But don't worry, you won't have to stress about losing Pikmin 2 even if you can't find everything, because there's no longer a day limit. No longer a day limit. Okay, so there has to be a good reason for removing time constraints, don't get me wrong. It's probably that way because there's more land to cover and more stuff to find and to do, and shoot, there's only like 3 actual levels and a hub world for dungeons. Yeah, okay, they're bigger, but goddamn Nintendo, I did not expect that from you, and it's a shame, right? Pikmin levels are beautiful, and the kind of environment you don't ever get perspective of in most games. So, strangely, the real reason is that the bulk of the treasure is underground, where there is no beautiful scenery. And there's probably fewer levels because of how much space went into dungeons, because there's a lot of them. Too many of them. Guys, I fucking hate the dungeons. My legit first reaction to the dungeons was, who even designed these, an intern? Turns out they're procedurally generated. Oh, okay, so level design, something Pikmin's done pretty well at, only applies to the overworld? It's just so bizarre. And I feel like the dungeons are the linchpin of all the game's issues. If this game was just Pikmin 1 but bigger, and with more Pikmin, I swear I wouldn't be here right now, but let's talk about these things. The dungeons go on way too long. Way too long. It does overstay its welcome. Yeah, it's neat going into caves and seeing what treasures are there, what the theme is, all the enemies, whatever, cool. But floor after floor after floor, 8 of tedious threat disassembly, enemy clearing, treasure digging just takes up so much time. Not only are they too long for a Pikmin game, they're probably too hard. Yeah, I said it. Look, Pikmin isn't built for combat. It just isn't. The controls aren't precise enough or quick enough to facilitate interesting, impactful, skill-based combat. Yes, you can aim at angles, and this is where the Wiimote is better, right? And use the C-stick to cleverly avoid damage and swarm, but play this for longer than an hour, and tell me combat was a primary concern. Again, it's a calculated risk, not a primary gameplay feature, but in Pikmin 2, with so many enemies, combat really is elevated to primary gameplay feature status. And it sucks. Pikmin combat sucks. It can be rewarding, but far too often it's finicky, imprecise, and of course, risky. So often you'll be losing Pikmin to seemingly nonsensical battles because the dungeons make that happen. I just want to point out that the dungeon difficulty actually incentivizes the player to go around clearing bombs by punching every enemy out with your very weak melee attack. Very fun, very cool. Add this to a pile of haha fuck you idiot game design with bombs that fall from the ceiling just when your dudes are surrounding an item to pick up. Just way too many bombs in general. Oh my god! And you'll have to restart more than 1 or 2 dungeons if you're not flawless. Not to mention being forced to run a 14-floor gauntlet before the final boss. That's not very Miyamoto of you, game designers, but it's fine because the game has infinite time now, remember? You can only lose to your own apathy, refusal to beat the game. I don't know if that's genius or just obnoxious, but what I do know is that the new Pikmin and the berries also throw the balance of the gameplay out the window. The sprays are made from berries, which temporarily increase your Pikmin's combat power or petrify nearby enemies. Your Pikmin can gain this huge advantage over enemies with a single input, and you can grind berries relatively easily if you're willing to make it a goal. The new Pikmin are kinda what break the game balance wide open though. These white ones are a bit weak, but they're the only ones who can dig. They're necessary to beat the game, though this can be said of others as well. But they're poisonous, which will kill just about anything that eats them. You can invalidate so much combat difficulty indirectly with these, just so long as you have one to dig with. The purple are just the worst. Grab like 20 of these guys and watch every large enemy roll over dead in the time it takes to throw half of them. Other Pikmin don't do this. The purple just have a high chance to stun enemies, so you can basically stun lock everything to death. It's not hard, it's not smart, and so only the environment and poor use is what'll kill these bastards more likely than not. Otherwise, they're busted. The good news is that these Pikmin types are limited to 5 per white or purple conversion flower or whatever you call it, but you'll either have too few from the sheer scarcity of the flowers or too many because you've been playing and stockpiling forever. I don't know, guys. This game is good and all, but so much of it is just inelegant, distasteful. I don't want to delve dungeons. I want to explore and master lush environments. I want the combat to mean something, not just be a mindless grindfest through a goddamn legion of bugs. I want to get meaningful objectives, not pick up a fucking bottle cap worth less than 1% of the total debt to pay off. I don't care if it lasts longer. I don't care if the game wants me to get everything and beat every dungeon because I'm not a completionist. I think it's cool they put in multiplayer and extra content because they wanted to make Pikmin 2 a full-bodied consumer experience, but you know, I don't know if the evolution was worth what was lost along the way. Wait, why is Louie the final boss? God damn it, Louie! Pikmin 3 does a lot of things I love while returning to some of the basic concepts presented in Pikmin 1 and cleverly bridging the additions of Pikmin 2 into that more traditional framework. The first big thing is controls. They were so different when I picked up the controller I thought Nintendo had gone insane. But after playing with them the whole way through, I understand exactly why. Combat doesn't have to be sloppy anymore. Using the gamepad, you can easily lock on, all sci-fi-esque to monsters and send all your guys at once. There's a roll button too for avoiding attacks. That's important because the C-stick is gone. Yeah, it took a while for me to get used to as well. I honestly hate that it's gone, but the gameplay has changed with the controls. Honestly, the only problem that came up is sometimes I'd hit the charge button too quick once I locked on, causing all my dudes to be dismissed in combat instead. Having both charge and dismiss mapped to the same button seems fairly idiotic, but okay, whatever, we made it through. And at least the Pikmin follow fairly well this time, actually tracing your footsteps, so they've taken steps to streamline the controls. The new Pikmin types are cool and balanced, so that's neat. I did think it was a bit odd that they placed blue Pikmin so near the end of the game, but I guess flying Pikmin are intended to handle most of the water sections early on anyway. You've got 3 captains this time, each of whom is entirely identical mechanically as far as I can tell. Hashtag Brittany for Smash. You can chuck them around and solve puzzles with them, which thankfully exists now. Not that they have to, because there's enough miniature goals to complete on any given map such that micromanagement is at a premium. It's really rewarding to orchestrate, and you can orchestrate plans now thanks to the sick top-down view of the level that the game gives you. Holding the gamepad gamepad, planning your objectives out, it feels like that's what Pikmin was designed for, so big ups to Miyamoto, who returns triumphantly in the development of this installment. You'll be discovering strange new creatures, solving environmental puzzles, traversing interesting terrain, and collecting tons of fruit to survive, and harvest the seeds for your dying planet over 4 massive levels, and a final boss level. This is what I wanted from Pikmin 1. More of everything, but an emphasis on beautiful, open, and interconnected puzzle-solving environments, and this time, while the fruits aren't always exciting, generally are really cool. It's a real-world item that's just alien enough at massive size, especially with some of the more tropical ones. As carried over from Pikmin 2, I really enjoy seeing the names the captains come up with for these. Dawn Pustules? Ew! Insect Condo? Ew! Velvety Dream Drop? Oh, that's nice actually. And the fruits are sometimes easy, sometimes really difficult to get a hold of. And since they're your ticket to beating the game but also playing the game, they've given the player a tangible, meaningful, and interesting reason to go out and stop eating fucking potato chips all day, Louie! It's true, as some have pointed out, that if you're playing fast, you're never gonna run out of time, but that's not the issue. It's the principle that it can run out at all. And to be fair, it can get pretty dicey. Super early in the game, I failed to bring back a fruit by a literal hair. There's no way. And that mistake kept me super low on food in a potential game over state for about 4 in-game days. It was stressful, but in a challenging way. At another point in the game, all your stuff is robbed, and you're challenged to survive with what you can find in a new area. It's ingenious, reminding you that the world of Pikmin is indeed capricious and unkind. It's kill or be killed, and in such a happy-looking game. Louie, and it's not all peaches and Pikmin, you know? Sometimes things get rough. He killed himself, dude! The bosses in particular are far more realized than any in the franchise thus far, and while some of them, especially early on, are really cool and dynamic and epic, a lot of them tend towards the frustrating side of things. The moth is annoying in one way or another, but it's nothing too obnoxious, right? I enjoyed the fight and its aesthetics. The armored Maudad starts strong, but kinda devolves into whipping Pikmin impotently at a quick-moving target, and then he just sits around sometimes. It's just a really hot and cold combat pattern, you know, but he's cool nonetheless. The sand belching Slug, Jesus dude, this fight would be super epic and cool, except whenever he'd open up his hole in the ground, some of my Pikmin got sucked in. My first run was super messy and full of casualties. I felt pretty stupid, especially knowing that people run this game with no Pikmin deaths and all. But seriously, how do you avoid this, even with the dodge button? The Scornet Maestro isn't a problem either if you know how to fight it, otherwise all your dudes are getting skewered and you look like a fucking clown. The Quaggled Myroclops is the most annoying, micro-intensive fight in the game to my knowledge, at least until the final boss fight, and while it's full of spectacle and, I don't know, mud, it was mostly a slog. The bosses add this air of legitimacy to what you've been doing in the levels, but your Pikmin are such unwieldy weapons against genuine tests of your combat ability, especially when combat's been simplified and you've been taught to just swarm everything with the lock-on mechanic. And what was that last level even about, exactly? I read lots of complaints about it before I ever played it, and I saw someone mention that I'd appreciate it after a while. In retrospect, having the final level be a long, confusing, but micromanagey skill challenge is fitting, but the final boss boring up your asshole is in no way comparably enjoyable to, for example, the 30-day limit in Pikmin 1. Now that guy's just gunning for your life, and guys, it ain't fun until you master it. Even so, after a long, extremely messy slog, I got to the final boss, wiped, set out the next day with a full force and a nearly dead final boss, and whooped his ass. I think they should have just made me redo the fight, frankly. It's not like I did anything special to deserve the win, except, you know, going back to do it. Not to mention, making the final boss a blob of piss jelly ain't exactly the epic conclusion I was hoping for. What can I say? But I don't want to undersell this game, right? I think Pikmin 3 was incredible. The environments are so perfectly realized for what Pikmin wants to be. Even with the design of the game shifting direction, Nintendo was aware of the core of the game that made it special, and they tripled down on it, no exaggeration. If you haven't played any of these games, hey, maybe emulate Pikmin 1, right? If you get into it, please play the third one. I completed Pikmin 3, and I never do that. It's got multiplayer challenges and all kinds of content outside the sizable main story. I really want Pikmin 4, guys. Try it out, whatever you do.